we are wishing our lives away. And what I mean by this is that we are constantly looking for something in our lives to make us feel fulfilled. So, for example, like if you're just finding things in your life that you're always working towards something and you're like, oh, I wish I had this, I wish I had this, I wish I had this, I think it can be quite harmful to your well-being and the way you function in life, because if you're always searching for something in your life to fulfill you, and if you're always working towards something and thinking that it will fulfill you, is it can be really harmful. Because if you're living your life on the basis of, if I achieve this goal or if I achieve this dream, it's going to automatically fulfill me, well, you might think it is, and in the process of doing, you might believe in it 100%, but that might not necessarily be true. I mean, there's so many things in my life where I expect something to happen in my life that's, monumental, and in reality, it wasn't as impactful as I thought it was, and it left me fulfilled for maybe a moment. It didn't make me feel fulfilled like I thought it was going to change my life. I mean, I think it takes so many moments in our lives to realize that life can be better when we don't really wish our lives away. If we wish for something all the time, if we're wishing for something in our lives to change, if we're wishing that, we look better, or if we're wishing that, our life situation was different, we can wish all those things, but in reality, every time we wish those things into reality, it's harmful. And I'm not talking about like manifestation and like kind of visualizing what you want in life and visualizing what your dream is. I think those things can be good to a certain extent. But what I think is harmful is that making these goals in your life and basing them off of, your fulfillment. I mean, I think the statement of finding happiness can be silly, because there's so many different things that people think that they can do to achieve happiness, when in reality, happiness can be defined in so many different ways for so many different people. There's not a set definition for what happiness is, but people go and look for happiness all the time. And I think that's the same for wishing for things in our lives. It'll leave us ultimately unfulfilled because we're wishing stuff all the time. And I'm talking about, I wish I had this, I wish I had this, I wish I had this. Not only does it leave us unfulfilled, but it makes us more hungry for wishing for stuff that will most likely never happen. I mean, you could be the most driven person in the entire world, but if you're wishing for things constantly to happen in your life, you'll be unfulfilled. But I think you can also shift. The mindset can shift. The mindset does shift. Because, I saw this really cool video from this chess grandmaster, and he was talking about, people ask him, oh, how can I get better at chess? How can I make my rating better? I'm this age. Is this rating good at this age? How can I get better? And basically what he was stating is the simple facts. If you want to get better at chess or anything in your entire life, you have to put in the work. The work has to get done. So if you ever want to fulfill something in your life, and if you ever want to get something done in your life, the work has to get done regardless. All right? And it has to come from times when you don't feel like it. I mean, I was writing like 2 days ago, and I felt like quitting. I didn't want to keep writing. I didn't want to keep thinking about stuff because I wanted it to be perfect from the get-go. Unrealistic. It's extremely unrealistic, and it's harmful. It gets in my own way. I get in my own way. And in my previous video, I was talking about self-sabotage. It's such a big problem. And I don't think it's talked about as much as other things, because, there's always going to be a situation. There's always going to be a moment in our lives where we could be, well, I wish this could happen in my life. Or I wish this would happen. Or I wish. And even for myself, it's extremely harmful because, I wish I could be a filmmaker. I wish I could be a director. But it's not good to think that way, because it tricks your mind into thinking that you've already completed the task. It goes the same for saying that you're going to do stuff and then you never do it. it tricks your mind into thinking that you've already done it. It trains your mind to get reliant on saying things and wishing things because it's so much easier said than done. It's tricky. It's so tricky. There's so many things, so many distractions, so many things in our own life that can get in the way of what we're trying to achieve. And I mean, it goes for anything because we tell ourselves constantly, oh, I'll put in the work. I know the work has to get done. I know I have to do this. But then when it comes to actually doing the work, we feel completely like, uncreative or unmotivated or, not as driven as we were before. And it's something to get tripped up on because there are extremely driven people out there. I mean, it's true. There's just some people who are, I guess, more driven than others. But it doesn't mean that being less driven or not as driven as other people can stop you from doing what you want to pursue. Little side note, because a little side note on the fact of, getting things done. Just getting things done because, more recently I've been trying to procrastinate less because, in the end it's a lot more harmful to me. I've been trying to be so much more productive because I know I'm just wasting time if I'm not doing it. But, I've caught myself wishing. I've caught myself wishing that I could come up with a great idea. I've caught myself wishing that, the work wasn't as hard. I caught myself wishing that it was easy. But, in what I'm doing, I'm trying to chase something that's so much more than me and so much more than what I've ever experienced in my entire life. So it's like, well, the work has to get done. In the moment, it's so difficult. And I have no idea how some people do it, and I bet there's some people who work off straight willpower, which is just, good for you. But, not so much for me. But that's the beauty. Another side note, little tangent. That's the beauty of life because every single person is on their own path. They're doing their own things in their own individual lives that is going to, change the course of their life. They're making intentional action. I think that's so important, in like chasing a dream, chasing an achievement, doing stuff. The work is what, not necessarily fulfills you, but the work is what has to get done. Like, kind of has to get done. If you want the stuff to happen, it has to get done, regardless. So, that's what I want to talk about today. It's true because we wish so much for stuff, and not stuff that won't necessarily happen, but we wish for stuff hoping that it will come true even if we don't do the work. Because if you say, I wish I was a bodybuilder, but then never touch the gym or never take your nutrition seriously, you won't ever become a bodybuilder. Or if you want to become a professional athlete, but then don't dedicate your time and your soul and your mental and everything into that craft, you won't become a professional athlete. And it goes for everything. There's a sort of commitment where it's like, I don't think I've realized it as much as I should. Because it's true, all the people at the top of their craft, whatever they do, the people aren't there in their sleepless nights, or the people aren't there when they're struggling. There's so many people who struggle with their mental health because, it's mentally taxing. It's extremely taxing. But I think that's the beauty of it. Not necessarily falling in love with the struggle, but understanding that the struggle is necessary in order to succeed. So that's the video. Hopefully I can put a little bit more videos out. School started, so I'm getting a little bit more busy, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop making videos. I'm just so passionate about talking about, my thoughts and my journey, and I'm a director. Yes, that's the video.